for y'all
Yeah.
that don't know, Reggie Bush here. We got Reggie in the building.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing
Of
this.
course, man. No problem.
Okay. So I was watching a lot of the pregame Saints Cowboys. I think that's what a
Yeah.
lot of people want to get into.
Yeah.
What was like the energy like last Thursday before the game?
Yeah. It felt like a really big game. It felt like a playoff game. Like it
Like a
had that
playoff
feel to
atmosphere?
it. Yeah, it had that playoff atmosphere to it. And, it was a huge game for the Cowboys. Like Jerry Jones earlier that week was saying that we have to play every play like it's a Super Bowl play, right? And so those comments coming from the owner of the team told you how important that game was to them. And they played like it, right? Like they matched the play of, what the owner was putting out there, what Jerry Jones was putting out there. And so it's funny because in 2009, when we won the Super Bowl, we played the Cowboys in New Orleans. We were 13-0, and they played every play like it was a Super Bowl. And it was our first loss. We ended up losing that game. But it had a very similar feel to it, right? It felt like that. And so the crowd and the energy was amazing. The fans I think the game had to be sold out. The Who Dat Nation, all the Saints fans showed up in
You
full
kept saying
effect.
who that on the broadcast. You were like,
Yeah.
because you had like Michael Irvin to like the
Yeah.
right, and then you had you.
Yeah, I had to talk some trash to Irv, man, just because, I knew how much the game meant for the Cowboys, and I knew he was going to be riding that narrative of, the Cowboys got to show up and show out, and we have to play this like a Super Bowl. But to me, that's the ultimate sign of respect. Like when your opponent feels like when they have to play you at a Super Bowl championship level, that is the ultimate sign of respect because they know what they're up against, and they know that if we do not treat this like it's a championship game, we're going to get blown out. And so kudos to them. Their defense played lights out. I've said on air multiple times that, they have a defense now that can carry them through the rest of this season. And they're in a really good spot right now to be able to win a division. And I don't know if it's so much based off of how they're playing, but because it's between them and the Eagles right now.
Yeah.
And Philly has a much harder road to finish out their season. They got to play. I think they have. I forget the teams.
They have the Cowboys next week, and then they
got the
have
Cowboys. And I can't believe it. I can't remember else who was. I was just talking about this the other day.
They might have the Giants. No, that's not hard. I mean, the Giants show up sometimes.
Yeah, but no, they have a tougher road. I'm mixing up their schedule right now with the Steelers because the Steelers have to play the Patriots and the Saints. And so, but anyways, the Cowboys have an easier road ahead of them than the Eagles do. And so by that, I think by default they'll be able to to win a division. But at the same time, they still have to play the Eagles this week coming up. And so that's going to be a tough test for them.
This is my question. So I watched the game, and I think what was interesting when I watched that game was, usually like teams have to pick their poison with the Saints. Either, you're going to try to stop the run game or you're going to try to stop the pass. Like most teams cannot neutralize both. And I felt like they really made Drew Brees uncomfortable. And like Drew is a shorter guy. So when I really watched a lot of the tape, he couldn't even step into a lot of his throws, which he likes to step into. So I think it's one of those situations when, like, you're that team, like, you probably know, you guys had that X on your back. You're like the Warriors giving you their best game. I don't think most teams will be able to, like, neutralize them, both the pass and the run, like the Cowboys were in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, what the Cowboys did well was they contended a lot of the passes that Drew threw. So they made it ugly for the receivers, right? There weren't a lot of easy catch and throws for the Saints receivers and for Michael Thomas. And so they did a good job at that. The defensive line, they got pressure on Drew. They got in his face, and you're right, they made him uncomfortable. There were a couple of throws. There were two throws in that game I saw Drew make that to me, I was a little surprised because they were both to Kamara. There was one in the first half he threw to Kamara, and it almost got picked off, and it didn't get picked off. And then the second one did get picked off, and it just they didn't look like they were in sync. They didn't look like they were on the same page, and that happens sometimes. That happens to a lot of the best teams, right? At some point in time, on any given Sunday, the worst team in the NFL can beat you if if you don't show up and show out. And that's what happened to them. They went into a hostile environment. The Cowboys had their backs against the wall. They had to win that football game to stay in the hunt to win the NFC East, and they were victorious. But the one thing that I took away, a couple of things I took away from this game: the Saints have a great defense, and the Cowboys have a great defense. The Saints sacked Dak 7 times and caused 2 turnovers. One of them was at a very important part in the game where he could have easily been the reason why they lost that football game. Giving the ball back to a quarterback in the offense like Drew in that situation usually results in a loss. Now, the defense really, to me, that's where they proved their worth and proved how good they were, because in that situation, you turn the ball over like that against a great quarterback who's, on a MVP campaign right now, it usually results in a loss for you. So they did a great job all around. They played complimentary football. But if the Dallas Cowboys want to be successful, Dak Prescott has to be better. He struggled in that game in the wrong situations. Now, he was 24 of 28, so he completed a lot of passes, and he was that. But the issue is that was a great game for Dak, right? Like, that was a really good performance for him, and he still had 2 turnovers or whatever it was. And so he's got to limit the turnovers. They have to rely heavily on Ezekiel Elliott in the run game, and they have to, when Dak has under 30 attempts, they're very successful. When he has more than 30 attempts throwing the football, it usually results in a loss for him. And when Zeke touches the ball 25 or more times, it usually results in a win for him. So that's the formula for the Cowboys for this year, at least.
This is my other question, kind of back to the Saints a little bit. So, like you said, you were part of that team. Y'all started 13-0. You lost 3 in a row. Do you think that, sometimes losses are good at this point? I'm kind of curious, just what was y'all's mindset when you dropped 3 in a row, about to go to the playoffs? Did you, not your confidence wavered, but it was are we still that team that started 13-0? How did you guys still keep that confidence that we still are this team that can go all the way, even with the losing at the end?
Yeah, it was tough because, sorry, is my video paused? Because your screen is paused.
No, your video's good.
Okay, cool. All right. It was tough because we lost the last 3 games of our season. And so the Cowboys beat us outright. The next week, we had to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We actually tried to play that game, and we came up short as well in that game. And divisional games, I don't care what your record is, divisional games are always tough because you have to play that team twice. And so it doesn't matter what your record is. When you play in your division, those games are tough. Those are the hardest games to win. The easier games are when you have to play a team once, right? So we lost the next game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And at that point, there were questions, as to, if we were still the same team, if we could still go out there and be successful and do all the things that we wanted to be able to obviously win a Super Bowl. And we didn't play the last game. None of our starters played the last game because we already had the number 1 seed. And so we didn't have to play our starters. So we rested everybody the last game. So that's where the 3rd loss came from. But when we got into the playoffs, we were fresh, we were healthy, and we were ready to go. And, we were focused, and we played the Arizona Cardinals in the second week of the playoffs because we had the first round bye, and we beat them up pretty good. And then the next week we had to play the Minnesota Vikings again, and that was our toughest test. That was a really tough test. And if Brett Favre does not throw that interception at the end of the game, they go on to kick the field goal and go to the Super Bowl. So, we had a little bit of luck on our side, and we also played great complementary football, and we got a turnover when we needed it the most.